thank you so much for joining us. My name is Barry Erickson, and I'm Community Engagement Coordinator here at Wheaton Public Library. Tonight, we are delighted to bring you another art demonstration in partnership with the DuPage Art League. Founded over 60 years ago, the DuPage Art League is dedicated to promoting and encouraging the visual arts through classes, workshops, gallery exhibits, and public programs such as this one. We are grateful to the Art League for arranging tonight's demonstration with artist and bookmaker Bonnie Jaswith. Bonnie started her career as a high school art teacher. Raising a family led her to explore other avenues, venturing into macrame and weaving. She spent weekends selling her art at arts and crafts fairs. Later, Bonnie returned to school for an interior design degree and enjoyed many years designing homes. Bonnie joined an art group and through them discovered making books. Once the Book and Paper Guild formed, she joined and has been involved ever since. Bonnie also belongs to the Midwest Collage Society. So thank you so much for being with us tonight, Bonnie. So we're going to have you go over there. So Bonnie, if you want to go ahead over to that X and then just, you can tell us a little bit about your background. I think we need to make sure that the mic is on.
Is it on now? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. I began making books. I found it fascinating, and I have been doing it for over 20 years. So my books are here. The other half of them are still at home. As I'm sure, does anyone here make books? 1, 2, 3. Okay, and you know how much fun it is. I have a table at the far end with books that you can touch. The rest of the books, no, no, no. I'll start with some of the things that you can touch. And in the 11th century BC, China began to make paper. And this is some of your paper. See? On the X, so you can all see me. And so people at home can see me too. There is no such thing as rice paper. Yes. And you will see it over and over and over again. You don't make paper out of rice. You make it out of weeds, flowers. The first paper came from a plant called sedge, S-E-D-G-E, sedge. And that is when they ground it up, put it into water, and then drained it, and then made paper. This is all papyrus. The other one is called parchment. This has been around since about the 3rd century BC. Now, because we are in another kind of, let's say, era, the parchment has been modified. So it isn't the same kind of parchment you would have found in the 3rd century BC. But it is still here. We use most of it for cooking. I tried to make books out of it, pages for books. I didn't like what happened with it. But it's good for cooking, it's baking, and it's still parchment. Egypt started it, and parchment is made from an animal. Cows, sheep, goats. Your papyrus is made from a plant, all kinds of plants. And so the parchment and the papyrus, give me a minute, I seem to have gotten cold someplace. This is nice to work with. It seems like it's tough. It's tough in a way, but it's still a good type of thing. So we're going to put this away. And we're going to talk about some of the other things that we have. I need to work on with the tables. I want to go back. I began making my own paper, excuse me, and found that it worked better for me. I used some of the Japanese stitches after the Japanese made things. So they have your stitching along here. And I have to put that on the table here. Let's move this out of the way. This is one of the books that I've made. And then I've used the parchment, or rather the papyrus, to make books. Copied. I belong to a group of artists who make books. It's the Book and Paper Arts Guild. We meet once a month, and there are about, right now there are about 20 of us. And we make books. One of us leads the group. If you have Sue has been going around and getting your autographs on little pieces of paper, because there's going to be a raffle at the end, and we're going to give you, it's not quite a book, it's a wallet, but it's made from paper. That has been, some of it is commercial, some of it is, excuse me, and some of it is not commercial, it's handmade. See where we want to go with this. Using your papyrus, I have stitched along the edges. You know, I keep forgetting that. I'm not used to working with all of this here. So we're going to put this aside. And we're going to show you some of the things that are done doing stitching. The inside, this is called a hemp leaf binding. This is a basic stab binding. And then this is also a tortoiseshell binding, enhanced with beads.
Sure, if you have a question, just raise your hand and I'll come over to you with the mic.
I was just wondering what kind of thread or bind you're using in your sewing,
It's
Your
a
binding?
bookbinder's thread,
bookbinder's thread.
which is heavier than your sewing thread.
Okay. Thank you.
And your needles that you use have a larger hole so that the thicker thread goes through it.
Another question?
Yep. Where do you get the thread and the needles for making the book?
Yes, Blick has some thread and it has needles. However, I use a John Neal Books has bookbinding things, papers, as well as threads and needles. Although Blick has a nice assortment and a nice collection. And being right here in Wheaton, it's at Butterfield and Naperville Road, and you can find it in that section over there. There used to be one in Oak Brook, but not in the mall. It's on Route 83 and 16th Street. But I haven't been in that park for a while, so I don't know if that is still there or not. Yes.
The question was if Hobby Lobby carried bookmaking materials and you don't think so.
No, it doesn't. So that's why doing it from a mail order, which is John Neal Books, and they are in Kentucky, I think. More threads, yes. Okay.
I was just wondering, all your various stitching patterns look really cool that you're talking about, and I just wondered where we would find the methods to do that kind of stitching.
In a book.
You know what? To make the book.
In a book. Unfortunately, this library doesn't have a lot of how-to books on this, which is why I recommend John Neal, where you can find that kind of thing.
If I may plug the database, though, we do have the Creative Bug database, and there is a whole series on bookmaking. And I know from seeing those included, she does have classes or segments specifically on types of book stitching.
Okay. It takes patience. It takes learning. As with anything you learn, some of your books take a little bit of time. This is a secret Belgian binding. Don't tell anybody. But it is a beautiful stitch. I belong to the Book and Paper Guild. I also belong to the Chicago Calligraphic Craft Club. I am left-handed. When you do calligraphy, you can't be left-handed. Doesn't work that way. So what is thick becomes thin, and what is thin becomes thick when you're left-handed. So I belong to that group because sometimes they have just workshops on doing things with paper, coloring it, painting it, dyeing it, cutting it up, tearing it up, repasting it. So that part of the calligraphy is fine and dandy. We're doing that.
Excuse me, Bonnie, there's a question about sewing the bindings from our virtual audience. And they're asking, do you use protection when you sew? And do you make the holes in the paper first, like with an awl?
Yes to both questions. Yes, you can make it as a whole, especially if you are going through something that is thicker paper or many pages. And you would do that with an awl, or you can do that with a hole punch. And some of your hole punches come with small nibs that you change so that you can make the hole larger or smaller. Depends on what you want to do with it.
And do you protect your hands or the table when you're doing that?
Yes, there is a mat that you buy. It comes in different sizes. I find Hobby Lobby with some of their calligraphy and some of their sewing things is a good source without going to a to the
Yeah,
yes.
I'll come with the mic just a moment.
Do you reinforce the holes that you
No,
punched out?
you just are light-handed so that you're not tearing them. Some things you find in books, this is a question, the answer. And it's all about an artist. It took a long time for me to call myself that. For some reason, it was not in my mind. I was just having fun until I learned that you can sell these. Sometimes it's hard to give them up, but it does pay for your supplies.
Hi, I just have a quick question. You have mentioned the Book and Paper Art Guild that you belong to. Does this guild have a website or a membership, a joining opportunity?
We have a newsletter that we put out monthly.
A newsletter, but how would someone access that newsletter? If someone wanted to join your Books and Paper Art Guild, is this, do you have you don't have a website then, is that right? You don't?
No, we have a newsletter. We don't have a website.
So how would people join?
Well, I
So,
can,
so the question, I'm not sure that got into the mic. The question is how to get more information about the Book and Paper Guild and perhaps get on the mailing list so that you would receive that newsletter.
I can give you my website or my information.
Right. In the follow-up email that'll go out later tonight after the program, there, Bonnie's generous to give us her email address. And so I believe you said that the process would be to contact you and then you would get them added to the mailing list? Good, good.
I don't make books this large usually, but I decided I wanted to try it so that I could put different things on here. Again, sayings and poems. Something to try. Different books don't have to have a lot of verbiage. This is purchased. I didn't do this. Have to be honest with you. I need a poem. I need sayings. They'll come. This was in a magazine. Like this. Seems backward to me. I remember watching some of these movies. Shows you how old I am. Pardon? Don't ask me which one.
So all of the images you found in one magazine?
And so I had fun putting it together. The group that I belong to tries to do something every year as a collaborative. And so we choose a subject, and then each one of us makes a sheet or a page. And then put it together.
So Bonnie, with that collaborative book, approximately how many people are in the guild then participating?
This year, we have 17. We've diminished quite a bit. So we invite you very much so. Yes,
I was just going to ask with this group that you keep referring to, where does that meet?
we meet, this year we're meeting at the Lyle Library.
Okay.
They have meeting rooms there and we meet in one of the meeting rooms. This year it's the first Thursday of the month from 7 to 8:30. And we have, each one of us takes a month and presents something. And in our newsletter that goes out, we have a supply list so that you come prepared. And many times we don't finish. Most of the time we do.
And another question?
Thanks. Yeah, these are just beautiful. Could, are all these made from handmade paper? Or what about, they have a lot of choices of different paper like at craft stores.
No, they're not all made from handmade paper.
Oh, so some you buy from like scrapbook paper, whatever. it might be at
Wherever
Michael's.
your construction paper
Yeah.
is sold. That's why Bleak is so good, because at the back of their store, they have drawers full of paper.
Oh.
And you can choose whatever you want. Most of it is very reasonable. And then there's always construction paper. That's allowed if you want to do it with construction paper. If you want to do it with handmade paper, Blick has that too, except it's a little pricey. But if you are doing something you want to do and you think that you are going to like it, then buying something that is a little more expensive is worth it.
Yeah, thanks. Do you have any books to recommend on bookmaking?
Books,
On books to how to do.
how to, yes. If you go into something that is called books in your what your yes, you'll find a lot of places to buy it through that's why John Neal is good. He sells books on how to and paper, and also other supplies or needles. That's why Blick is good. They have needles, they have a small assortment of thread, and let's see this here. And
Bonnie,
sometimes you have to do it once with just plain paper, just so you see how it works, and then do it in nicer paper. You'll have the stitch down, you'll have the glue down. Some of these are glued.
Bonnie, you've mentioned John Neal as a source a couple of times. Can you spell Neal for us?
N-E-A-L.
N-E-A-L.
John Neal Books.
Thank you.
This is one thing that we made at one of our meetings. So it packs easy, and then it becomes fun.
There we go. Bonnie, one of our virtual audience members is asking if you tend to use acid-free paper.
What
Do you
kind-
tend to use acid-free paper, more archival?
If it's handmade paper, then it is archival and probably acid-free.
Okay. And you mentioned that a lot of the books there that you're showing us are glued. What types of adhesives do you use?
PVA glue. It's called PVA glue. Comes in a tall bottle, round tall bottle. I should have brought some of that, but I didn't.
And do you use the same adhesive, whether it's like a handmade paper or like the magazines that were in that book that you showed us a few minutes ago?
Yes and no. It depends on what you feel is important to you. If you've bought expensive paper, then you want to find a nice glue that is archival too. If you are doing something that is okay, you don't care, you want to just make the pattern, have the pattern, then just regular glue. But the PVA glue I seem to have all around, and also Yes glue, Y-E-S. Yes glue is also a good glue. We'll start over here. This again is something that is a poem for my mother who has passed on. But this is a poem to her. I'm not going to read it to you. You can read it if you come up here because I will cry. She was my buddy. Fun. You can put poems, pictures, photographs. Fun. Easy to do, but different.
Is that at one of your monthly meetings?
There is another book and paper that is in Villa Park. And she has a lot of teachers come in and do things like this, mostly cards. So it would be fun for you to see
So
that.
that's another example of something that was made at a Book and Paper Guild meeting. Thank you.
This is handmade paper. Collaged with just different papers. And then I treated it with a glue over it so the paint wouldn't. No, I usually treat this with a methyl cellulose, which is a kind of a glue, but it doesn't make it sticky.
Are you saying methyl?
METHYL. Now, am I going to do something with this? Yes. But I don't know what yet. This is a skinny book. It's in a skinny box. We'll do this for their audience. Is this the same as skinny? Is it long? Is it narrow? Is it slim? Things that are skinny. String beans. My dad used to call me string bean. In France, they are called haricots verts. Did I say that right? Oh la la, my granddaughter is thin. Call her Skinny Minnie. That's my granddaughter, a long time ago. There are sayings about skinny. Pencil. You're skinny as a pencil. You're lean as a rake. Are you seeing this upside down? Yes? Sorry about that. You're lean as a rake. You're thin as a toothpick. Is skinny horizontal? I can't read that. Curled up like string, or fine as hair. Rapunzel, look down your golden hair. And then there's always skinny dipping. And this is just plain brown paper. Just ordinary old brown paper. Mhm.
So the question was if you made,
I covered the box. I found the box someplace, probably from pencils.
On the outside,
This,
kind of like parchment paper or no?
so
no,
the
it's tracing
question,
paper. It's tracing paper.
so the cover, the
The
exterior,
cover is just black construction paper. This is tracing paper. It needs a ribbon to hold it. Boxes. We have a timeshare on Hilton Head Island in South Carolina. And so these are the little shells, seagrass, butterflies. And then inside is a piece of driftwood. We did that. I am into paper. This is handmade paper. And it has different things from nature. Curled twigs that you find in the forest on walks. And who put the flowers away? This is just a folded book. So the inside has folds that will stand up, and then folds that lay down and are glued. It'll stand. It will. These are pages of handmade paper by me. Mhm. And it will be a book eventually. It still needs to be glued or in some way, shape, or form, do something with it. But you fool around with that. Pardon? Just design things.
Like.
Well,
twigs and flowers.
this is different kind of handmade paper.
But I mean, okay, when I made handmade paper, I did it in a blender and then I, put it over a screen to dry as it was forming. I was just wondering what kinds of things you put in there. Would you put flowers, twigs,
Yes,
things like that?
things like that. Mhm. Tear up paper itself and put it in here. That's what all of this is. This is different things. It isn't glued down yet. I don't know what I want to do with it yet. Do I want it this way? Do I want it this way? I don't know. Next time.
So Bonnie, where do you get some of your ideas or
I just
Wait,
play. I just play
inspiration?
around with it. This was yellow metallic paper, construction paper. And then leaves that have been, have ink, and you roll the ink on the leaf and then play with it. Excuse me. Let's go over things that you can touch. Maybe.
Let's take this one question first.
For the demonstrations you've given of things that are folded and kind of like pop up, or however they're being folded creates the different forms that you have. Are those kind of instructions for that in some of these is it John Neal books that you were talking about?
Even in library books that you find that have,
Just paper folding in
Paper
general,
folding things.
origami maybe, or?
I try to do folded things. That's how I started first.
Mhm.
And then I started getting into sewn things. And those are harder because some of them are actual things that are a certain kind of stitch. So all of them have a learning process for me.
Right, but there are books that show different folds to make like pop-up cards and pop-up pages in handcrafted books.
And your accordion book. And it's an accordion. If you would know what an accordion is. If you talk to a 20-year-old, they look at you like, what's an accordion? And you remember mom saying, practice? Did you practice? My sister did accordion. She liked the accordion. I liked ballet. She didn't like ballet, I didn't like the accordion. And this is just an accordion book with heavier cardboard covers. This is one of your easiest ones and the ones you learn and teach. It's a piece of paper, just a piece of paper. And then you turn it up at the bottom to form a pocket. And then you put something in the pocket. Now, depending on what you put into the pocket, it will close. If you make it too heavy, and it gets too fat, then it doesn't close. Doesn't close right, doesn't look good. This is when it's fun. Taking a piece of paper, cutting holes in it, making an accordion within. And it can be, this can be up, or this can be up. However you want it. So that's part of the fun of it too. I didn't do anything to the outside yet. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. Don't know. And again, sometimes you find a sheet of construction paper that is like this. And then when you cut it up, you can make a book. I debated showing you things like this. Mostly because I didn't make the things that are here. I cut them out of a set of paper things.
And Bonnie, we've got another question over here.
In the last book that you just showed, did you use an X-Acto knife to make those cuts?
Probably.
Okay.
Bonnie, actually, that one's upside down. Can we turn it around? There, perfect. Thank you.
I keep forgetting that. It came from somewhere. Took a lot of time. And then because I didn't do or make all of this, I hesitate to show it because it seems it's too commercial. And yet it makes a pretty book. Pretty is the word? I don't know. Dreams can take you anywhere. Imagination is a powerful thing. And so you have little things, little books. This is called a magic wallet. Magic wallet. If you haven't given Sue your name on a little sheet of paper, I have 8 of these to give away. Now, usually they should contain a check or money. And it's nice to give to teenagers, because what do you give a teenager that they like? Money is always acceptable, or a check. So I have these for you. I bought this. I don't know where. But I wanted to show the other audience.
So Bonnie, would that be an accordion book that you attached inside the box?
Yes.
Would you call that an accordion book inside the special box?
Yeah, I bought this little suitcase in the kids department somewhere. But we had been on a wonderful vacation, and I took photos. And these are photos, some from brochures. This one is from Monet's studio in Giverny. But it's a nice way of presenting photos and fun to do. My husband's hobby was making clocks. And so he had a lot of clock parts around. And then he had a Mickey Mouse watch. This is a box that you buy. It comes in parts. Shows you how to put your papers on. And then you decorate how you want it. This is called a star book. And when you look at it, it has different ways of keeping it and looking at it from above so that you get a different pattern too. And these are just things that you find in magazines or wherever. Nice and tidy. It's called a star book. No, I made it myself. That's the fun of it. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, but these are wonderful. Let's see, just two quick questions. Thank you. One, glue dots. Have you used those much? I mean, they're easy to use and manipulate. I was just wondering if you have any thoughts about glue dots.
Glue dots?
Dots.
Yes, I've used them.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay, well, that's a good recommendation.
And depending on what you want to do with it, I have taken things like this as a book cover, but this could be a nice little pattern for a wall. Could be and that happens that way. And that's going to fall.
Oh, well, thanks. Yeah. Have you ever thought of, or did you ever make anything like for young children that they could manipulate and obviously it would not be these
They
fancy
couldn't.
kind.
Some of it is so sophisticated, like this. You wouldn't give this to a
No,
child.
yeah, I understand. Yeah.
But can you do something else with a child? How old is a child?
I don't have any.
You know,
I
if
was
it's
just
under
wondering.
5, all they could do is probably an accordion.
Yeah. Just appreciate
And
it.
if they want to glue something down, I would say kindergarten could be done, but nothing as sophisticated as this.
Yeah, maybe just glue some simple photos on or something. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And again, a different kind of binding. Now these are, the vertical lines are wrapped. Each one of those wrapped. That takes time. And this is called a tacket binding. Just plain. This was a 3-day workshop in Wisconsin with Don Etherton. And he had us making all of that. It was a tough workshop. Because we had to drill the hole. He gave us 2 pieces of wood and said, here. He put us through it. It was a fun workshop, but it was a tough one. This was another workshop that was held in Chicago. And that school just closed. Who was I talking to? Sue. You can't remember it either. And we made all of this paper. All of it is different. Look at it, isn't that gorgeous?
The pictures, and are they sewn together? Is there paper in the middle of that? Oh, I see, okay.
So the question is if those are separate signatures?
They're separate signatures. But I didn't want to just do this and not sew it together with this. What this is going to be is yet to be. But all of these are different kinds of things. Here we have indigos and gold, madder, walnut, red sandalwood. They are inks. We had to make the ink, and then we had to dye the paper. So it was a complicated workshop, but definitely fun because you can do that.
I have a question. You're talking about workshops, but where are these workshops?
This one was at a school in downtown Chicago on Wabash Avenue. I think it was Wabash. Could have been on South Michigan because I've forgotten it and it's closed. And I can't remember the name.
So
That's what
wondering,
age does to you.
have you done any international? I'm just aware of a bookmaker in Scotland, Edinburgh, Edinburgh, actually. It's called the Traveling Bookbinder, and she hosts classes in various parts of Europe and in Scotland, and she does work online. And during COVID, she opened it up quite internationally. I'm not sure how I got in touch with her contact, but
Excuse me.
it was very nice to have done a little book. It was like an accordion book, very simple. It was during COVID, and so there are people all over really the world, the UK and Europe, Australia. I just wondered if you'd participated in things like that, or you've heard of this
I've heard
traveling
of them,
bookbinder.
but they want you there. They don't when they advertise it, it's for you to come there rather than do it as a broadcast.
Yeah.
So while I would love to do it, I can't.
Well, she has some e-courses, so I just wondered if you were familiar with her or other international,
No,
or national bookbinders that are bookmakers essentially. That are
no.
doing interesting crafts, so, okay, well, that's good to know.
Might be, we're doing some searching online to see if some of these workshops are available virtually.
Again, this is yet to be. Sometimes I don't want to touch them because I'm afraid I'll ruin it. I guess I have to get over that. I'm sorry.
Bonnie, the question is, have you ever purchased plastic sleeve covers to protect the books, or is there another way to protect them? Those were just, you said
what
those
this
were just from cereal boxes?
This is the wax bag that comes in a cereal box. So it's full of cereal. As you can see, I eat a lot of cereal. But it's a good way to keep the books clean, protected, and damage-free in a way. Oh, I have the sleeves that you would put in a book. You're putting in your whatever.
Right, someone is suggesting that you line sleeves
And
to
you
put
can
things in to
I do
protect
that
them.
too.
Right. And since we talked about these workshops, someone virtually typed in that there's a site called Hollanders, HOLL.
Hollander's closed.
Okay. They thought they might be a source for national workshops, but perhaps they're not in business anymore.
Hollander's was in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And he taught, and they had a store of all of these wonderful different papers. And we had relatives in Michigan, in Detroit area, and I'd have my husband stop at Hollander's, either on the way there or on the way back.
And Bunny, as we're finishing up, I don't know if you want to talk about how you got started or maybe what instigated your interest in handmade books?
How I got started?
Yes.
I went to a workshop just to see what it was like. And I don't know if you know Cheryl Mahawald. She started this at, where did she start it? At her home first. And then she expanded, and she was part of a group. And I went to one of her workshops. And she was very knowledgeable. We did something very simple. And I got hooked. It was something I hadn't done before. And so getting hooked on it was just wonderful. And I love it.
Well, and as we're talking about these workshops, actually the person who's attending virtually said that Hollanders moved, so they are
Oh,
still
they're still open.
in business, and now they're in, and I'm not going to say this town in Michigan right, but Ypsilanti, YPSILANTI. So they moved out of Ann Arbor
Is
to
it pronounced
Ypsilanti, and they're
Ypsilanti? Isn't that how it's pronounced? And she said Hollanders moved there. So, okay. I'll find out where it is. Street number.
And we did a little searching back here, and apparently they have an online store, but there may not be workshops anymore.
They don't do workshops, but they have a store.
Yes.
There are stores there. Okay. Stencil. With gesso. Not with paint, but with gesso. So I get texture. This would make a wonderful cover. And is this what you're talking about as far as the? Yeah, this is just a holder of paper. Good to know. Are there other questions?
Any other questions? I'll bring the mic to you, just a moment.
When you're sewing your books together, do you use a cradle? I've seen cradles like with holes already, like they're wooden forms that the signatures go in. Do you use that?
I use a cradle to punch the holes,
Okay, yeah.
but I don't use it to sew.
No, just to punch the holes,
To
right?
punch the
Yeah.
holes.
Okay. And those ones that have the sticks on the sides, so is the paper sewn, is there stitching around the stick or you're making little like I don't know what you would say, like the paper's going like a pocket, like the paper's going around the stick, is that it? It's not
Yes.
sewn? Okay.
Yes. I can see it. So there's sewn around the stick.
There is stitches there or it's glued?
It's glued. It's glued.
It's glued, okay.
This will be a lot of sewing.
Okay,
And
other
I have patience
questions?
on that.
Any other questions? I can bring the mic.
We saw this.
Apparently, we've got another source in Michigan. Someone says that Michigan has Kalamazoo Book Arts Center. Most of their workshops are on site, but some are online. So that might be another source
That's
for
another source,
book
yeah.
workshops. That was the Kalamazoo Book Arts Center.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Other questions? All right, is there anything you want to show us before we close tonight, Bonnie?
One of the gals that was in our group, it was an art teacher. And every summer or every other summer, she would open up her driveway and that was covered with just tents. And she'd have tables with dishpans. And she'd buy some of the dyes. Or we would make things. This is handmade paper that we made. And then we would put things in it. I'd like to use them, but I don't know what to do with them, and I don't want to ruin them. So they stay there and I don't do anything with them. I have to get over that. This was commercially bought.
All right, got another question? Just a moment.
We make the paper.
Now, you're saying you make the papers.
You make
and
the paper.
What do you do to make the paper? How do you start out making paper?
It comes as pulp. As pulp. Sometimes it's dried and then you have to wet it and make pulp. We use dish pans. And the pulp was put into the dish pan with water. And then we had sieves. And we'd scoop up the pulp, let it drain, and then we turn it over onto something that would absorb more water. Many times this was on the grass because we were in her driveway. And she would have as many as 20 of us there at the same time. So we ran out of room on the driveway and went onto the grass. And then a lot of this was dried on the grass to enough so that she could put it into a press and press down 20 or 30 pieces of paper. And we knew whose was whose. Sometimes we had to put our initials or name or something on them. But working with some of the leaves and that kind of a thing was just wonderful. And again, I want to do something with it, but I don't want to spoil it.
Do you
Okay.
need to dry the leaves before you put them in, or do you just put the leaves in as they're wet? As
Leaves as they're wet. Sometimes you can, sometimes they stay where you put them. Many times they don't. So if you get it, take it out and it's wet, you can put your leaves in it. If they stay where they are, you're lucky. Sometimes they move. Sometimes you decide you're going to put your leaves in on the wet surface and then scoop it up. And they don't move too much. See, now I'll do something with this one because it's torn. So I don't mind ruining it, making something out of it. More questions?
All right, any other questions? I'll come to you with the mic. And if you have any questions in our virtual audience, go ahead and type that into the Q&A or the chat. Okay, I think that's it. All right, Bonnie. So I think we'll end the webinar part, and then we'll go ahead and do the drawing, and people can come up and take a look at some of the things that you have on the table. But thank you so much.
Okay.